Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, scholars and dignitaries, welcome to another episode. Welcome to my world. So today I want to share a little bit about anger. I was backing out of a parking space and unfortunately I backed into a car that was in my blind spot. I always turn and look, usually 2 or 3 times, but on this occasion I simply didn't see the car. So I got out and apologized to the woman and confessed that it was my fault and that whatever the insurance didn't cover, I would be glad to pay for myself. But this driver was livid. She wasn't just being overly dramatic, she ranted and raged and had an outburst on the border of hysteria. And here's the kicker. There was absolutely no damage. When we looked at it, she saw that there wasn't any damage. Luckily, there wasn't even a paint scrape, but that didn't lower her anger at all. It was almost like her anger had an emotional switch and would flare up to a level 10 with little or even no provocation. And that's the way it is with a lot of people. Now, anger is a very normal response when people are feeling threatened or offended or even misunderstood. And as a general rule, everyone gets angry from time to time. And yes, there are ways to control it and manage it, but there are also ways, better ways, to rise above it, practical ways. And me, well, I like to deal with anger head on, not psychoanalyze it to death. So I have just a few ideas about anger that can help explain how we can cope and adjust, but again, more importantly, to rise above it. I think as human beings with integrity and dignity, we need to rise above our base instincts, our base emotions. We need to control our emotions or they will control us. But I'm not talking about pathological anger or about intermittent explosive disorder, but about everyday anger and anger found in most situations. So again, anger is a normal response to a variety of stimuli, but essentially there are two problems with anger. First, when anger becomes an automatic response and therein we seemingly have no control or choice, our anger is on automatic pilot. And second, when anger becomes intense, often to the point where we say or do things we normally wouldn't say or do, and ultimately we end up hurting somebody's feelings, or we're sorry or even embarrassed by our actions. Now, in both cases, the common denominator isn't the anger. It's the loss of control over it, the seemingly inability to make a choice to be angry or not, and to what level we allow that anger to build and be expressed. For instance, today people watch a lot of television. Unfortunately, hundreds of studies have shown that anger and violence on television easily translates into anger and violence in our daily lives. There's a causative effect. Virtually every television show has a situation now of anger, even extreme anger, and too often they show inappropriate ways to deal with it or resolve it. So if you feel that your anger button is too easily pushed, that it has become an automatic response or your primary defense mechanism, there are some simple suggestions, some practical suggestions to help you control it. And even if your anger goes way back to your youth, with practice, one can unlearn old ways and replace them with newer and more healthy thoughts, actions, and behaviors. But the key really is not to control it. The key is really not to manage it. The real key is to rise above it. Rule number one is kindness. People may not remember what you said to them or what you did for them, but they will always remember how you treated them. Professionals say that the number one way to strengthen your relationships as well as your family is through the expression of kindness. William James, the father of American psychology, once commented that the most important need of all is the need to be treated in a gentle and kind-hearted manner. We like to be around people who show us care and compassion, yet often we fail to express kindness, consideration, or appreciation, or say nice things to our spouses and children. To change this, instead of giving an angry retort or insult, extend a sincere compliment. Practice substituting a kind and loving response instead of an angry response, maybe even showing care or concern or love. It takes a big person to be able to do that, but if you can do that when you're getting angry, your anger will dissipate in mere moments. And social scientists report that those who practice kindness and engaged in acts of kindness over anger experience a significant boost in happiness, relief from stress, and higher levels of self esteem. Being positive instead of negative does, in fact, make people feel good about themselves. Rule number two is to slow down and temper anger with understanding. The first thing to do when confronted with intense emotion is nothing. Try to understand that person's viewpoint, and often we do have to validate their experience, if not their reaction. You know it's true that if you walk a mile in someone else's shoes, you begin to understand their experiences, their life, and who they are. So, is it possible to try to understand and affirm the person and not the behavior? Yes. And often that helps the most for allowing the anger to totally dissipate and for that person to return to a normal level of emotion and feelings. Rule number three is to count to 10 before you respond. Unfortunately, when someone confronts us in anger, our response is instantaneous and we blurt out an angry, emotional response and engage on an emotional level. The best thing to do, though, is not to engage on that level, but on a neutral, let's say logical level. So stop, think, count to 10, and then respond. The difference is like day and night. And science shows that when we wait 10 seconds or so, our own tendency to overreact lessens. Our brain re engages and we maintain much better control. So slow down. Think through your responses. Don't say the first thing that comes into your head, but think carefully about what you want to say. At the same time, listen carefully to what the other person is saying and take your time before answering. Rule number four is a very interesting dynamic. When someone confronts you in anger, think about it. They may be hurting, they themselves may be in pain. So, where you find harm, bring healing. Instead of confronting them back in an angry tirade of expletives, try to extend a little compassion, a little understanding, a little help. Now, this is where we need to show that we are the adults. We need to redefine the issue. Is it really anger or is it covering up pain? And is there a better way for us to respond so we aren't making matters worse? And rule number five is to, again, redefine the anger. Redefine your perception of anger. Do not see it as a personal affront, as an attack or an insult that threatens us. Think about the old adage, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. It happens to be true. And if you can redefine it in your mind, either as something which cannot hurt you, or even as just a common language that this particular person communicates in, it will help you put things in proper perspective. So redefine it in your own mind. Instead of telling yourself, oh, it's awful, it's horrible, everything's ruined, tell yourself, it's frustrating, but it's not the end of the world, and my getting angry isn't going to fix it anyway. So there are other ways to manage anger, and especially if it is the impulsive or reactionary type. Practice problem solving. Often anger is an outcome which is misplaced because we don't see options or haven't explored them yet, and there are always options. We just need to take our time and explore them. So make a plan on trying to find a solution, but also to see how you face and handle the problem along the way. Use humor. I have always said that humor is the spice of life and helps relieve anxiety and even anger when used appropriately and not to mock, dismiss, or be sarcastic. But humor can certainly help to diffuse extreme anger and rage. Humor releases tension, it releases anxiety, and we can laugh off stress and, yes, even anger. It's not denying the circumstances, but it certainly helps to lift one out of the bog of drama and deep emotion so we can think and respond more clearly. Avoidance is another practice that has its place if done appropriately. You may want to find alternatives. For instance, rush hour traffic in the city may be a hot button for some people, so look for alternative traffic patterns around the congestion. Or at work, if you're in a high stress position, give yourself extra breaks to be able to walk away and gather your thoughts. By avoidance, I don't mean total neglect, but to avoid putting yourself constantly in a position of high anger circumstances. And to be honest, sometimes when you are the most angry and you feel like you're going to explode, just walk away. Go out for some air, go get some coffee, remove yourself from the situation entirely to regroup, reframe, relieve, and go back when you are cooler and emotionally adjusted. Another concern is when you hold anger for a long time. That becomes a grudge. That becomes a resentment. And a resentment is poison to your soul. You are feeling the anger over and over again, and often the other person doesn't know anything about it at all. You are the one being poisoned by the resentment. So let the bitterness go. Whether or not you have been treated justly or fairly, forgive and forget. And how often do you have to forgive? Well, St. Peter told Jesus that his brother had wronged him, but he forgave his brother. Then he asked Jesus, "How many times should I forgive my brother? As many as 7 times?" And Jesus said, "No, you must forgive 7 times 70. In other words, all the time. Forgiveness is a powerful tool. And try relaxation techniques, yoga, meditation, and constant prayer and religious practices, and of course, physical exercise. These help you to deal with your anger and other weaknesses we have on a continual basis. Finally, know when to ask for help. Learning to control anger is a challenge for everyone at times. So if you feel that you are out of control, ask friends to hear you out, but not to validate your anger. And better yet, find professional counseling. Seek help for anger issues, especially if your anger seems to be building or going out of control, or if it may cause you to do something you may regret or hurt those around you. And just a final thought, when you're angry, don't goad people with your responses. Don't try to embarrass them or incite them further. Again, words have power, and you can say something which incites people, even to the point of physical retaliation, or you can help diffuse the situation for everyone. So choose your words carefully, and words which diffuse, de escalate, and help to heal are far better than profanity, cursing, or outbursts. And then, as soon as you and perhaps the other party are thinking clearly again, you can express your feelings in an assertive but non confrontational way. State your concerns and needs clearly and directly, but in a sensitive way without hurting or offending others or even trying to control them. So basically, these are the practical guides to working on anger management and anger control. But what I am really suggesting is to adopt a whole new mindset that allows us to rise above anger altogether. I can't tell you what a freedom this brings. You are no longer a slave, reacting or overreacting to moods or emotions, either yours or those of others. You can now choose to let their anger go and let your anger go as well. Try it, practice it, and remember, a new habit takes 21 days to develop, but this does work, and you too can be free from the anger trap. Rise above it. Hey, be safe, be well, and God bless.